Let's kick things off by creating a new page. Quasar, new page, components, /Q dialog page. And there we go. Let's open up our server. Scroll down here. There it is, and we're ready to go. Search for the word dialog and just quickly put in the word test, and we can get cracking. So we can create an example to begin with by saying Q-dialog. And then in here, we're going to model some data that's going to open this dialog, which will be show dialog. So let's go ahead and create that. And data, return an object, and let's set that to false by default. And I'll just whack a div in there to begin with. All right, so now we need something that's actually going to open this dialog. So we'll create a button, Q-button. And what are we going to have here? How about for the text, we have something like newsletter. And then when we click on this button, we're going to set show dialog equal to true. So basically, click on this button, show dialog becomes true, and therefore the dialog will then be visible. So we should probably whack something in this div so we have an example to begin with. Example. And there we go. It's not much. So usually in a dialog, you're going to use cards. We'll say Q-card, and then we'll have a Q-card- section. So a lot of the styling is handled for us out of the box. And then we can say sign up to our newsletter. Save that. And let's see if it works. There we go. That's a very basic example of how you would create a dialog. Good stuff. Now, it's common to add a Q toolbar to a dialog for a little bit of extra information and to hold a close button as well. So usually we've got like a little close button at the top of our dialog and a toolbar that might say our newsletter or something like that. So let's go ahead and make that happen. First of all, we'll add this at the top of the card by saying Q-toolbar, and then we'll have a Q-toolbar-title. And how about something like newsletter experiment, because we're experimenting here. And there we go, we've got that. How about we add some color in here? Background green, I think that'll look nice. And there we go. And we'll also make the text white. Cool. And then we want a close button that's going to close this toolbar. So let's say Q-button. And how about this? Flat. Just to begin with. Yeah, there we go. And we'll also want an icon. And we'll set that to close. And there we go, that looks good. I'll probably make it round so it takes up some less space. And save that. And there we go. And the last thing we want to do is make it so clicking this button actually does something. So to do that, we can use a directive called v-close-popup. I use this everywhere. The v-close-popup can actually be used in basically any pop-up throughout the Quasar application. So whenever you're inside of a pop-up and you want to be able to close it, simply attach this to a button or something that's clickable, and it's going to handle all of that for you. So let me just save that, refresh the page, and let's see if it works. And it does. So that's an example of adding a toolbar with a close button to our component. And now let's just smash through everything that the Q dialog has to offer in the API, or at least most of it to begin with. We can square off the edges by adding square in there. So that squares off the edges for us, makes things feel a little bit more crisp and clean. We can say persistent. And what that will do is it'll make it so we can't actually close this dialog by clicking around or by pressing escape. The only way to do it now is by having something manual like this close button. So now if I click that, it will close. So that's good to know. And persistent is made up of a few things. So you can say, for example, no dash escape dismiss. So if I save that now, pressing escape will not close the dialog. By clicking outside of it will. We've got another one here, which is no dash backdrop dismiss. So now pressing escape closes it, but clicking on the backdrop does not. What else do we have? We've also got no dash route dismiss. Save that. And in order to show that example, we're going to have some of our own routes. So let's jump in here into the routes file. And you don't have to follow along with me here. I just want to quickly show you this example for the sake of being thorough. So there we go. If we go to dialog/subroute, then that's going to basically take us to the same page. /sub-route. Let's check if that works. Yeah, so that pretty much takes us to the same page now. And how about this? We'll say that when this is created, we'll have a timeout. Here we go, set timeout. I think I've also got, here we go, I have a snippet for that. And then we'll set that to 5 seconds. And after 5 seconds, we're going to go to that route. This dot router dot push, silly example, but I want to show you how it works. Dialog/sub-route. Save that, refresh the page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there we go. It changed to that subroute over there. So now, going to that subroute should not close the dialog because we have no route dismissed. So refresh the page. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I need to go back to the original route. So jump into there. Might have to just refresh the page now. 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. It went to the subroute. This remained open. Remove that. Save it. Refresh the page. Actually, I need to get rid of that as well. And refresh the page. 2, 3, 4, 5. And there we go. Changing routes does actually change it. So that's just a quick example of how it works with no route dismiss. Moving on to something a bit more interesting. So scrolling back up here, what else can we do? We can say no-refocus. So this is particularly useful for people who want a lot of control over accessibility. And the best way to show this is with a little trick that I learned recently. I didn't know about this until now. If I click on this little eye here in the console and then say document.activeElement. So what that's going to do is it means I can hover over this here and see what the active element is. So check it out. If I click on newsletter, close the dialog, the active element goes back to this button here. So that's pretty handy because that's kind of what you'd expect. When you close the dialog, bring my focus back to that button. But if you want control over accessibility and you're doing your own thing, then you can easily just say no-refocus. And now, if I open this up, close it, we're now focused on the body, so we haven't refocused onto that button. So the same thing is actually true for the dialog itself. If I remove that, open the dialog, we are now focused on that dialog element, which, like I said before, this would be handy, especially if you've got a form. You want to be able to now tab down that form, and that will work using this component. However, if you don't want that functionality and you want to handle all of the focusing yourself, you can just say no focus like that. And now when we open this up, we're still focused on that button that we clicked on originally. So most of you aren't actually going to use this. It's for those that are, kind of have a lot of expertise in accessibility and want control over that. Another thing we can do is change the position here. Let's set the position to top. We can set it to bottom, to right, and then of course left as well, just for the sake of being thorough. We can also make it seamless. So position works really well with seamless. If I change this to bottom and then I say seamless here, check it out. I'm just going to close this now. Yeah, now I can click around and it's not going to close the dialog. And it just sort of pops up from the bottom, kind of like an audio media player on a website. So actually, let's go ahead and quickly build something like that. If we say full width here, should I do it? Yeah, full width. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, I want to create like a little audio media player using this dialog, just for something fun. How about we get rid of the toolbar? Let's get rid of the toolbar completely. Q-linear-progress. And a lot of this is taken from the docs because they have a lot of really cool examples around dialogues. Let's set that to 0.3. And yeah, we got this little progress at the top that shows us how far through the audio we are. And if we set that to something like 7, notice that it's going to have this really cool animation to change for us. So that's really cool, something we can create quickly. And then inside of here, we'll have a cue card section. And how about this? The title of a song. I really like Defying Gravity. I used to do a lot of musical theatre. In fact, I studied musical theatre for a year and piano before I became a web developer. Little known fact. And let's set some text weight to that, and we'll set that to bold. Okay, I think that looks good. And the other thing they did in the docs is they had a little subheading here, and then like a play and pause, and I think it was like a close button as well. So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. So that's from the musical Wicked. And the text for this is going to be a little bit less. So let's just say text gray. Yeah, there we go. That looks really good. So now we can come down here, and how about we have it all in this card section? So I'm going to have to wrap that in a div so that it doesn't get interfered with. And let's turn this into a row, but we don't want it to wrap. So a no wrapping row. And then I can put some buttons underneath here. Q-button. And let's just test if that works. Yeah, there we go. But we want to push that over to the side. So in order to do that, I'll throw some space in. Q-space. How does that look? Yeah, and now we can have the 3 buttons sitting on the right side there. I'm going to make this flat. We'll give it an icon equal to play arrow. And we'll also make them round. I think that'll look good. And now we can make this a self-closing tag because it won't have any text in it. There we go. So we get our play arrow. What else do we need? We need a pause one. And we also need one that's going to close the dialogue, just to create like a more full example. Play, pause, and let's make it so when you click on that close, we can say v-close-pop-up. And now you can imagine you could sort of like navigate through the site, especially if this dialogue was sitting on the layout, so it didn't disappear when you change links. And then you can pause, play, and then press the close button to get out of it. Really cool. I like that. All right, back to the API. So if we come up here, what else do we have? I might get rid of the seamless part and maybe the full width as well. Actually, let's get rid of all of that. And then we can say full height here as well. And that's just going to make this full height, as you would expect. We can also make it maximized. I've actually used this quite a bit in some of my applications when I want to have like a full, almost like an app within an app I've got in some of my applications. And so I just have a maximized dialogue and you can easily get back to where you came from. So that's really cool. What else? We can also tap into the content class and the content style. So I just want to show you a quick example around that. We'll remove everything inside here. And a lot of the time in my applications, I want to be able to warn people when they delete something. I want to warn them in a very strong way that if they delete that, it's also going to delete a whole bunch of other data. So often when you delete something, it deletes a lot of nested data within it. And you just want to be like, you know, please be careful when you're pressing this delete button. And so often I'll use a dialogue for that and just create a real sense of warning so that they don't accidentally remove stuff that they shouldn't. So let's throw a card in here and have a look at what that might look like. And I'm going to go back to our toolbar example, Q-toolbar-title. And the title is going to be warning 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's not make it maximized anymore. So that's a good start. We'll also want that close button, Q-button, and then we'll make this flat. We'll make it round, and then we'll also give it an icon equal to close. And then, of course, v-close-pop-up so that it actually works. Awesome. Now, I want to make this really obvious that they need to be careful right now. So background dash red dash 3, that's supposed to be a class. So I'll cut that, say class equal to that. All right, so that's starting to look good. Okay, maybe not 3. How about something like 7? Yeah. And then we'll set the text equal to white. All right, moving on. What else can we do? We'll probably have to put some information in here to let them know what they are deleting. So are you really sure? Can't go back. All right, and then we'll say, maybe put a bit of padding in there. Actually, this would work better with a cue card section, so it can handle the styling for us. Cue-card-section. And there we go. So that's a really good warning dialog. And now just to sort of drive this home, we can say content-class and then put in there, for example, background-red-3. And check this out. It actually sets the entire background of the dialog to red and just creates like a really a really intense feeling. So you probably wouldn't do that in a real life application, but I think that's cool. You can imagine how that might be nice. Or maybe something that says like congratulations, you could set the background equal to green and just make it feel really nice and pleasant. All right, so let's move that back to something like background red 3. And another thing you might want to do is content-style. And the cool thing about this is now we can have a whole bunch of control over the grayness or the transparency of the background of the dialog. I'll show you exactly what I mean. Let's say RGBA 000, and now we can say how transparent we want that to be. So if it was 0.8, for example, oh, that didn't work because this is meant to be a style tag. So I'll have to say background dash color. There we go. Yeah, notice that the background is a lot grayer now. Or if you wanted, you can make it really light. So make it 0.1. Yeah, just means we have total control over that dialog. We also have a lot of methods available to us. So I'm going to go through them now. We'll create a reference to this and just call it dialog. Why not keep it simple? And let's have some buttons that actually trigger these methods. So how about another Q-button? @click, and how about the label for this is action? So it's just going to do some sort of an action. Or how about method? Yeah, it's a bit more specific to what we're doing. And then we're going to grab that dialog by saying refs.dialog. So jump into our references and grab the dialog. This is a pattern that you'll use quite a bit where you set the reference and then to call those methods on that dialog, you then tap into that reference by saying refs dialog. And now we can say, for example, show. It's one of the methods available to us. And that's going to show it. What else do we have? We've got hide as well. In order to show that properly, I'll have to say position is equal to bottom and make it seamless, something like that. Yeah, so clicking around does not hide it. But now that hide method's being called, so that works. We've also got toggle. So now we can press this just to toggle it on and off. We've also got focus. So it's kind of hard to show this in an example, but clicking that will actually move the focus back to the dialog. In fact, let's open up the console again. Maybe if I click, I don't know, on this logout button. So notice that the focus is there, but if I click on method, it brings the focus over to that dialog now. So that's good to know. What else can we do? We can also actually call shake. So sometimes when you press escape, for example, the dialog will shake to say, hey, you can't actually close this right now. So you have control over that too. And it's not really a shake in this example. It's more of like a grow and a shrink. But you get the idea. And that's all of the methods that are available to us. And we also have events as well. So how about we come down here. And to show events, I like to have just a logger. Methods. And then we'll say here, logger console.log hit to say that that method has been hit. And let's see what we have available to us. I'll get rid of those two. We have input. So whenever the input of the dialog itself changes, this will get called. So we can call the logger on that. Open up our console. Close this now. And now notice when I close this, that method ends up getting called. What else do we have? We've also got show. So when the dialog has shown, it will then call that logger. However, notice that it waits till the animation is complete before it is logged. What we can do is say before show, and that means the moment it begins showing, that method is going to be hit. Watch this, ready? Click. And we have the exact same thing for hide. So before hide, that's going to get hit. And then we've got just hide, which will wait until the animation is complete. And that's really useful, for example, if you want to go to a new route after hiding the dialogue. It means the full animation is going to happen before you then go over to that new route. So the hide and show methods are the ones that I actually usually use rather than before hide or before show, just so the animation has a chance to complete. We've also got shake. And so we'll have to have, for example, here, no escape dismiss. Now, if I press escape, it shakes and we can hook into that shake event there. I've never used that, but it's nice to know that it's available. We've also got escape dash key. So when the escape key is hit, however, in this example, that's not going to work because it only works if you don't have no escape dismiss. So this is basically saying if you press escape and the dialog closes, then we're going to call that method. So let's have a look at that. Escape. And there we go. It means that you have a little bit more granular control of about knowing how the user closed the dialog. What else can we do? Okay, so one thing that gave me a lot of trouble in the past was working with queued dialogues. And that's because there were a couple of things I didn't quite understand about it. So check this out. If we set the style here, and we set the width on this card equal to, how about 250 pixels? Then that's going to do what you would expect. So we can make this as large as we want. In fact, it's probably better we get some lorem ipsum in here so that we can work with this a little bit more easily. Paste that down a few times. Yeah, so we end up with a skinny dialog, which is what you would expect. And if I come and inspect this, notice that the width of this is in fact set to the right width. How about we maximize that? 203, and that's because I'm on the wrong one. Yeah, there we go, 250 pixels in width. However, check this out. If I set it to something like 800 pixels, gets a little bit bigger, but that doesn't look like 800 pixels to me. And if we inspect it, notice that it's actually 560 pixels. So the reason is, Quasar has a little bit of its own styling to make sure that out of the box, the dialog component looks really good and has some sizings that make sense for most scenarios. However, if you want to get total control over this, this is what I do. First of all, I set the max width equal to 100%. Because this has been set already through Quasar, so I'm overriding it here and setting it to 100%. Save that, and now it's going to work. That's 800 pixels wide, and I'll prove it to you. 800 pixels. And so here's the rule of thumb for me. If the max width is 100%, then I can say the width should be the optimal width for this dialog. So I ask myself, what is the optimal width? What's the width I would like the customer or the person who's using this app to see it at? And then I set it to that number. So maybe it's 650. That's usually a good reading width. Okay? And then when you resize it, if we come and grab it here, it's automatically going to be set to the right width for us. Okay, so if you set the max width to 100%, set the width to something that you think looks really good, then things are usually just going to work out for you in the end, okay? So even if I have a smaller number here, like 250 pixels, I'll probably still leave that max width at 100% just because it makes me feel like I've got a little bit more control over the component. So that's really good to know. Now, the other thing that we can do, if I remove the style here, we can just set it to full width. And that's going to make it full width. However, if you make it full screen here, that can look a little bit silly. So there are situations where you might want to use that though. And it's always going to leave a little bit of room on the side, even when you set it to full width. And that's the exact same with full height. It's going to leave a little bit of room for you. And if you like, you can set full height and, let's come back here, full width, which will basically give you the biggest dialogue that it comfortably can give you. So notice we've got these little gaps around the side here. And I really like that because it means if you forget to have a close button, you can just click on the outside there. And the last thing I want to cover is scrollable content. So if we remove these now, save it, And now let's add a little bit more lorem ipsum. Paste that bad boy down. Take a look at this. Notice that when I scroll down, it scrolls the toolbar as well. Now I hate that, and I remember spending a lot of time trying to figure out the code to fix that and make it look good. So all we have to do is jump into this cue card section here, give it a class that is equal to scroll, so that's the first step, and we need to give this a fixed height as well. So let's come down here and say, for example, style is equal to height 70 view height, something like that. Save it, open this, and now when we scroll, it's going to work as we would expect it to. However, there's an even better way to do this. So check this out. If I try and make this really, really squishy now, notice that we end up getting this extra bar on the side there. Now, I know this is a very rare scenario, but it still kind of irks me, and I remember having to play around with the height, especially if you want a very specific height and you end up with this bar on the side here. This is what I do to fix that problem. I simply make this calculated, so calc. You might not know about this, but calc is a really awesome CSS sort of function that we can use to get a little bit more control over our CSS. And then I'll set that to 100 view height, subtract about 100 pixels. So what that means is that we can set this height to pretty much anything, and we're not going to end up with those side things unless I go ridiculously squishy like that. And there we go. We've basically got this perfect dialog with a scroller inside it, and the toolbar can still sit there without messing anything up. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it for you, as I always do, and I'll see you in the next one where we'll explore something else.